Hello again. So some people were asking me, sir, what if we write this get service charge function by using the approach of break instead of using this type? Yeah, you can also do that. It will also work. So maybe, for example, you can write like this. You can say integer service charge. Okay, you can initialize the service charge maybe to 0. Okay, and then you can say when the service charge is when the category is residential, you can say I want to set the service charge. I want to set the service charge to 3,000, and then thereafter you stop it right there using break. You get my point? And then when you come in here, you can say, if this is the case, I want to set the service charge to 10,000. Okay, and then you can stop it right there immediately using break. Okay, you remember the work of break in a switch? It's very important, right? Yeah. So you can write here service charge for the industrial category. Sorry, for the commercial should be 10,000. For the industrial should be 25,000. Okay, and then you stop it right there. You see? Yeah. And then in the default, you want to say, yeah. So here you could say it's not even a must to initialize it here. You can just put it like this, right? You can just declare it, and then here in the default you say if the user entered an incorrect category, then you just want to set the service charge to just be 0. Okay, and then it is not a must to put break inside the default. It is not a must because the default is always the last option, so there is no need to put break. You get my point? Yeah. If you remember the concept of break, you will discover that there is no need to put break on the default because the default is always the last option. All right? Yeah. So this is your switch. It ends here. Okay. So once your switch ends, you can now say you want to return the service charge. Okay. Again, whenever you call return, it means your function is going to stop right there on the spot, and that particular value will be returned. You get my point? Yes. Yeah. So this will also work, and you can test that. You can test, and you will see that your program is still working fine. You see? So if I enter here 1, and here I choose R, I should still get 3,100. You see? I did not introduce any error. My program is still working correctly. Okay. All right. Now, for this particular moment, let us head over to the next subtask. Okay, we have finished the first subtask, we have finished the second subtask, we have finished the third subtask for water bill calculation. Now let us go to the fourth subtask, which is getting a valid customer category. You remember I told you we are going to ensure that we always get a valid category, that the user should always enter either residential or commercial or industrial and not otherwise. You remember? Yeah. So that is the next subtask, which is the subtask for getting a valid customer category. Now, in summary, what is this subtask about? So we are going to create a function called get valid category, and this function is going to prompt the user to enter a category, either R for residential, C for commercial, or I for industrial. If the category that the user enters is not R, is not C, and it is not I, we want this function to keep prompting the user to enter the category. Like that, like that, like that, until a moment will come when the user will enter a valid category, either R or C or I. At that particular moment, we want to return that valid category. Are we together? And we are going to return that category in uppercase simply because in our switch, in our get service charge function, we are assuming that the category is in uppercase. Okay, So we have to make sure that this function here is going to return to us a category letter that is already in uppercase, so that we can directly use it in our get service charge function. Are we together? Perfect. Let's see the flowchart. So for the flowchart, here is our get valid category flowchart using a do while loop. Okay, we are also going to see the flowchart for a while loop. Okay, so for the do while loop we could say start. Now remember, the name itself tells you the characteristic of that loop. Okay, do. So it means it is a loop that actually allows you to do something, and then you check the condition at the end, and then if the condition is true, you can go back to do that thing again and check the condition at the end, and if the condition is true, you can go back to do that thing again, and then like that. You get my point? So we want our function to tell the user to enter the category, either R or C or I. Once the user enters the category, we are going to save that category. Then we are going to convert that category that the user has entered into uppercase. Once we convert it to uppercase, we are going to check, is that category, if that category is not R, and if that category is not C, and if that category is not I, then we are going to tell the user to enter the category. We are going to prompt him again. Once the user enters, we save that. We convert it to uppercase. We check again. If it is a wrong category, we go back and tell the user to enter. You see? We save it, and so on and so on. So this is our do while loop. You get my point? Yeah. Then a time will come when the user will enter a correct category, which is either R or C or I. At that particular point, the loop is going to stop, and immediately we want to return that valid category, which of course will already be in uppercase, because inside the do, we were always converting that to uppercase, right? Yeah. So this is the do while approach. For the while loop approach, remember, the while loop, the condition is going to be at the top. So if you're going to have the condition, if you're going to test the category at the top, it means you need to acquire that category already. You will need to have acquired it already. You get my point? So it means somewhere on top here, you will need to tell the user enter the category, then you will need to save that category, then you will need to convert it to uppercase. Then at that particular point, you can now be able to come and start your while loop. Okay? And then the while loop will begin by checking whether that category is not equal to R, and it is not equal to C, and it is not equal to I. If so, you are going inside now to tell the user to enter the category again. Can you see? And then you are saving it, and then you are converting it to uppercase, and then you are going back to check it. If it is not R, if it is not C, if it is not I. If that is the case, you are telling the user again, enter the category. You are saving it, and then you are converting it to uppercase, and then you're going back. You see? Can you see that? So that is your while loop. Okay? So you will see the difference between a while loop and a do while loop. There is a bit of a difference, right? Yeah. Every time you're using a while loop for these kinds of scenarios that we have seen, okay, you will see that a while loop will introduce this portion on top, this kind of portion on top. You get my point? Yeah. It is like an extra portion. Okay? Yeah. It introduces an extra step on top of it. Okay? And that is because it requires its condition to be here. So for that to happen, you need to have acquired an input before. You need to have acquired an input earlier before you even go to that loop itself. You get my point? Yeah. So, but you can use. Feel free to use either a while loop or a do while loop. They will all work, but just make sure you understand how to use. So I here have presented both approaches. So feel free to choose which one you want to implement. So in the next video, I will implement a do while loop. Okay. Yeah, I will implement a do while loop, and the reason, as you can see, it looks a bit simple because it does not introduce an extra step on top here. You get my point? Yeah, it is straightforward. Can you see? Straightforward. Okay, so I'm going to use a do while approach to implement the get valid category function. Okay, but just feel free to use any approach that you want. Thank you for listening. Head over to the next video as we go on to implement the get valid category function using a do while loop.